First and foremost, good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's Tech Talk. Our theme for today is Boardroom, Boots, and Diversity, which captures a very powerful idea on sustainability and knowing that sustainability is not just a policy written in the boardrooms, nor a task that is carried out in the field, but it integrates both the boardroom and the field, where there's strategic leadership and then it meets action, so there's a conversation that matters more than ever in the mining industry. And with that being said, with the different challenges that are out there, emission, reliability, ecosystem rehabilitation, empowering women in mining, I think it's great to say that today we have phenomenal ladies who are here to share what they've been doing in this space. And right now, I'd like to introduce to everyone Dr. 𝗪𝗏𝗧 Govender, who is the Chief Sustainability Officer at Harmony, with over 30 years of executive experience across mining, engineering, construction, and environmental sectors. She has a PhD in business leadership and a track record when it comes to embedding sustainability and ESG into core business strategy. Her innovative approach has driven market expansion, deep stakeholder engagement, and lasting impact. She specializes in sustainability, strategy, ESG, safety, health, environment, risk, and also public speaking. And with that being said, I would like each and everyone to welcome Dr. 𝗪𝗏𝗧 Govender. You're welcome, Doc. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Ntaku. Really, really a privilege. And thank you for providing us with this opportunity to share with you, my dear 𝗏𝗔 friends. I really believe that we are now friends. I've seen the names and I know so many of you. And I'm sure that, I'm going to learn a lot from you through the Q&A session as well. As was shared, I'm Dr. 𝗪𝗏𝗧 Govender. I'm now the Chief Sustainability Officer at Harmony. We are very privileged today to have with us Nishi Hariprasad. Nishi has just joined us, and I think if you know me, you will know that it's always swim in the deep end, and that's what Nishi is going to be doing today. Nishi is going to be the one that's going to share with us the biodiversity. I'd like to really talk you through the work around the boardroom, making sure that we have alignment from the board, the CEO, the top executives, and then making sure that we understand exactly what we need to do in order for when we have those boots on, we can deliver. Thank you. So first and foremost, I said Harmony. For those of you who are not familiar with Harmony, we have a quick 1-minute induction, which we will talk you through, and then we'll really go into the details. Thank you. So that's Harmony Gold. Started off in South Africa, 75 years. We've just had our birthday, and really a proud South African legacy. From a strategic perspective, we always say that we are safe, sustainable. That is something that is echoed by every single person that talks about harmony. We pride ourselves in profitability because that's really, there is no shame in driving profitability. There is no shame in driving the cost lever, and also to ensure that the business that you are in, you are improving margins. So at all times, make sure that you're managing those costs, irrespective of where you sit, my dear ladies. The size of our business, 1.4 to 1.5 million ounces. We've come out with that again this year based on the current assets that we have. We drive long-term value. And what is sustainability? Sustainability is borrowing from our children. So whatever we're taking from our future, we've got to make sure that there's value that is being created from our actions in the now. We have 4 strategic pillars. And what is very important as a takeaway is that sustainability needs to be embedded into the business strategy on all of these pillars. We've positioned ourselves into our focus area. Key would be that first gray block that you see, which is called South African Underground High Grade. Here, we are investing again for long-term value, 20 years. So those mines are going to run for 20 years each. 𝗵𝗂𝗫 𝗏𝗏. So we've demonstrated to South Africa that we are here and we are here for the long term. We have other mines, and I'll show you the details around those mines, but those mines are what we call marginal mines that we optimize. So safety is non-negotiable. We invest so that we can operate those mines safely, and those mines will provide us with profitability still at an agreed all-inclusive cost, sustaining cost. We have our surface mines, and as Harmony, we really boast, because we're so proud of being South African, the largest gold reclaiming in South Africa. So all those tailings facilities, many of us have been in South Africa, in Johannesburg for many years, and we've seen the impacts of those tailing facilities. You'll see those tailing facilities in the Johannesburg, the Free State, the West area slowly disappearing. And as those tailings disappear, what happens? We reclaim gold, we become more profitable. Number 2, new infrastructure that is coming up is built for the long term. So the impacts around dust, noise, etc., seepage, all of those will disappear. And then another area that we're very proud of is we are investing in international operations. Copper, as you all know, transition metal. So again, another deep pride from a strategic perspective. Thank you. We are a diversified miner, because as I said, the story is really South Africa. We have an operating mine in Papua New Guinea. And for those of you that have been to Papua New Guinea, you will know how beautiful it is. It's green, and we have a mine. The interesting thing about that mine is it also has tailing facilities. And we recognized that we had to expand the tailing facilities to 2 more. And we were only able to get approval on those 2 new mines because of the way we ran our operations in Papua New Guinea. We've got 2 copper gold projects. The one is in Australasia, 𝗏𝗏, and the other is 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, which is a tier 1 copper project. The interesting thing around copper, and I found it fascinating as I learned more and more about copper, is that if you think about the green trajectory, the renewable energy projections, the just transition, and all the copper that's going to go into that technology, it is said that we will need more copper going into the future than the copper we have mined since the beginning of humanity. They're talking about 180 new mines. And interestingly, a single mine takes 20 years from discovery all the way to having an operation on the ground. So we're very proud of those two projects, and we're holding on to those projects. For those of you that have been involved and understand the project development, you'll know that Harmony has been managing 𝗏𝗏 and Papua New Guinea for many years, and we understand that the authorizations, the amended authorization for Papua New Guinea is imminent. 𝘴𝘵𝗵𝘂𝗀𝗄. Thank you. And now with pride, we say we are expanding even further. We've just acquired CSA copper mine. We are going through the final loops, and hopefully by the end of October, we will have the keys to another copper mine. Thank you. This is a very, very important area that I'd really like us to focus on. It is the concept of a business strategy that is sustainable. What does it mean? I'd like you to reflect for a minute. If you were tasked to come up with a business strategy that is sustainable, where would you start? And our answer is strategy belongs to the board. So we worked with our group executive to understand what are the driving metrics, what are the driving focus area, those risks and opportunities to the business. And that's how you see those pillars. Responsible stewardships. We've got to be responsible stewardship to drive long-term value. We have to have operational excellence so that we can drive profitability. There has to be cash certainty and effective capital allocation so that we build confidence in our investors. How do you make sure that it is sustainable? And that's really the area that I'd really like to talk to you, which is a blend of strategy and boots. And as you do this, you got to make sure that it is value-based. Non-negotiable around safety, health of people, well-being. You have to have accountable people that are delivering on actions for sustainability. My very, very favorite is achieve. Be ambitious, be bold, be out there. Say you want to do it and say you want to be the best. Drive excellence. Connected. You can only do this. You can only build a strategy. You can only make it sustainable if you do it connected, top down, bottom up, and across. Across means partnership. So partnership is us in the room. It's us acting as organizational stewards and us going out and saying, listen, we operate in a landscape. How do we find partners so that we can adopt a landscape approach? And then honest, be honest. You know, we want to strive, we want to achieve, and sometimes we don't get there. So let's be honest about it. Thank you. These are our sustainability strategy pillars. So we worked with the business, we worked with the board, we worked with the Social and Ethics Committee, and we got approval from the board on these E, S, and G. And what they love the most about our framework is we are saying we are doing it because it is good for business. So while it is brilliant to be a steward, to do things beyond the fence line, we are also doing things because we want to drive operational excellence. On the environment side, it's about the carbon, the climate resilience, the carbon action. It's about biodiversity, which we will speak to you a lot about. It's about water. And understand that as you drive these elements around the E, the S, and the G are critical. It's integrated. So we will demonstrate to you that as we build projects. Nishi will talk to you through biodiversity and how we bring in community members so that we can have impacts on our social stewardship. We also make sure that it is ethical, it is transparent. So when we have tender processes, when we have open conversations with our communities, we do it with honesty and integrity. Thank you. We've adopted what we call a 3 A's approach, and it works every time. Because what is the world speaking about now when they talk about sustainability? Sadly, greenwashing, green hushing is inseparable. By adopting the 3 A's approach, which first of all talks about ambition, talks about what is your vision into the future. Who are the people that you are going to work with to take you there, internally, externally? And then what are the actions that you need? So we plot it onto a roadmap, and you can see a typical example here. Thank you. So if you look at, for example, our carbon ambition, and I'll talk you a little bit more, we set an ambition for net carbon zero by 2045, a water ambition of 80% reduction in potable water by 2034. Nature positive, we're not there yet, but we will talk you through in terms of how we're doing the pilots so that we can build confidence in what the future will look like. And very importantly, we have across the site all our operations underground, Australasia, Papua New Guinea, Australia, etc., etc. We've got people that represent them and they help us with these roadmaps. So when we talk about a project in Papua New Guinea, there's somebody that's sitting in the community of practice that is guiding us on what best practice should look like on the ground. Thank you. I have to share with you what our women in mining stats look like, because this is WIMZA, and we hold ourselves accountable to delivering on a just and fair process to get to our diversity targets. We have a target, as you can see, slightly lower for board, slightly higher for junior management, going up to 30%. And interestingly enough, you will see those green bars, which is the now. We are exceeding on our board target, not yet at parity. I mean, all of us as women, we want to see what's represented in the outside world, that 50-50, but we're sitting at 33%. Our challenge, and this is really across most of the mining companies, most of the mining houses, is junior management. We've got to make sure WIMZA, we've got to make sure leaders of mining bring in those women young, bring them in when you go on your school visits, be the mentor, be the coach that they need, because we've got to close that gap on junior management. Thank you. This is what our roadmap looks for the future. As you can see, we even pin down our social team. And this is the challenge. Asking HR to come up with numbers, asking them to come up with levers that are going to drive that 30% by 2030. Thank you. This is really our nature positive at a glance. I'll talk you through the water, the decarbonization, and I'll leave the biodiversity to Nishi. Thank you. Water. So when you talk water and you talk ambition, the first thing that you need to do with your team, with the business, is ask yourself, what is most critical in terms of water for the business? When we look globally, water All of us need fresh water to live, to survive. And if we look at access to fresh water globally, the number is now sitting at 1% of total water. So as Harmony, we took a decision. We will reduce the burden of our municipalities. We know that we have ailing municipalities, infrastructure in the municipalities are failing. We'll take on that responsibility in terms of potable water. So our target was set around reducing our dependency on potable water. And we got buy-in across the business, set up a community of practice, and this is what the roadmap looks like. Thank you. Absolutely detailed. So now the business can understand when we go to the board and we say to the board, we have a robust 2016 baseline. In 2016, we had a 25% dependency on potable water, which means we had 75% other sources of water. Still not good enough. We want to get lower until we have absolute reduced dependency. How do you do that? To get the water to potable quality, you need to install water treatment plant. There are various technology, and we can't do it alone as sustainability professionals. This is where we have our community of practices, our engineers, our project managers. So every single one of those arrows that you see is a separate water treatment plant in a separate location. Together, by the time we come to 2033, financial year 2034, we're going to be at 5%. So we've convinced the business that we can provide verifiable data against an ambition of 80% reduction in potable water by 2034 financial year. So that's strategy and sustainability actions, boots on the ground, working hand in hand to deliver on our water ambition. Thank you. The same holds true for carbon. Exactly the same recipe. What is your destination? What is your ambition? We want to be net carbon zero by 2045. We need a partner, an accountable partner that will support us internally and externally to reach there. We selected Science-Based Target Initiative. So we've got an SBTI approved target. How do we get there? We've got to understand what our carbon footprint is, understand what can we do that will move the dial to where we want it to be. So if you go to the next one, I'll talk you through what our carbon footprint looks like. This is really the build-up in terms of what's going to make up the journey to net zero. We looked at all the renewable energy projects, all the commitments that we have before we could take it through to SBTI. And interestingly on this, remember I said to you, all of this is about operational excellence, cash certainty, 425 million rands in estimated savings from our renewable energy installations. So it makes our job as sustainability professionals a lot easier because these have business cases and they're bringing in revenue to the business. The cash is being generated in the form of savings. Thank you. So this is what our carbon footprint looks like. You'll see the first one with the red of 19. There's a 3 and a 78. The 78 is scope 2. Scope 2, especially in the South African context, Eskom. If we look at scope 2 predominantly, as you can see from our energy mix, 86% is electricity. So we said to the board, for us to move that lever, It doesn't help we look at our petrol and heating oil. It doesn't help we look at diesel. We've got to make sure that we have an ambitious renewable energy plan. Thank you. So how do you come up with a renewable energy plan? First and foremost, you got to make sure that you are as energy efficient as possible. Do your energy efficiency mapping, do your energy efficiency audits, and implement those actions. Those are non-negotiable. Then you got to own the renewable energy project. You've got to put it behind the meter on your property. Why? You have the most control and you save on your wheeling cost. You then look at battery energy storage system, BESS. Again, why? The energy that you generate, those green electrons, you can save them and you can use them in terms of time of day. You can also use them at night. What you also need to do is you cannot always invest in long-term projects if you have short-term assets. That's where you get the power purchase agreement, which is wheeling. So somebody else generates the power through a project, goes into the grid. Green energy, green electrons are then allocated for the life of your asset. Same with wheeled projects. So you don't necessarily have wheeling capabilities on your site. You then partner and you buy those green electrons so that you can ensure that you've got green energy that is allocated to you. So this is really the strategy that goes on in terms of how do you ensure that you are driving an ambitious renewable energy plan where you get buy-in from your CEO, the executives, as well as the board. Thank you. So this is really to give you a picture of what the life of our mines look like. Those two big ones are the projects, the longest that we have. The other ones, as I said to you, we are investing in our South African assets. The lower ones, which is your 20-year 𝗧𝗵𝘂𝗵 𝗧𝗔𝗔 non-negotiable. Those ones, you've got to make sure that you've got it on your property. Those smaller bars, the 𝗧𝗵𝗂𝗪𝗔, the 𝗪𝗔𝗍𝗔𝗍𝗔, etc. There, you ensure that you've got green electrons that are allocated to you through power purchase agreements. Thank you. So this is really that ambitious roadmap that I shared with you in terms of what we're now calling Sungazer 1, 2, 3, 4. All of those are on our property. And you can see the size of it. It is huge. So it's 100 megawatts is the one that we are busy with. We're going to do 108 and then another 100. Still, if you look at the wheeled and the short-term PPA, it's not additive because remember I said to you the short-term is 5 years, but still really very big megawatts installation. And we do this at the back of the support of our board. And what that also means is we've got dedicated project managers. And if you look at the way we project from a budget, a business cycle perspective, these are already embedded into our business costs. Thank you. Just to give you a view, when we talk about solar and we talk about carbon, you can see it's inseparable from biodiversity. There are vast areas of land that are impacted, and we've got to make sure, and you'll hear Nishi talk about it, how we manage biodiversity as part of project planning as well. Thank you. This is really the destination for our net carbon zero, all packaged for you. So you can see SBTI said 60%. You'll see 2036 we've shown to the board. If we implement our plans, we'll be way above 75%. And we've got our interim targets as well, so that we can hold ourselves accountable in the short term. Very good 2045. Many of us may not be around, maybe many of us may not be in business, but we certainly will be able to answer in 2026 when they ask us to deliver that 11%. Thank you. So I'll now hand over to Nishi, who will share with you, similarly, the thinking behind biodiversity at Harmony. Thanks, Nishi.
Thank you, Rishni. I hope you guys can hear me okay.
We can hear you, Nishi.
Thank you very much. So, good evening, everybody. I'm very, very privileged to have this session with you. I'm going to speak about the biodiversity work that Harmony is busy with and essentially the principles we follow. So in mining, we often speak about ounces and margins and tons, but biodiversity reminds us that there's also another currency. And this currency we talk about is life. So rivers that run clear, wetlands that filter water, plants that hold soil, and people that find pride and purpose in restoring balance. So today, before I dive into the technical aspects of biodiversity work that we do, if you could picture this image of women, like all of us here, standing in the front line of rehabilitation and transforming landscapes, leaving a legacy for our children and communities. So later in the presentation, we have an example of a 100% women-owned company that's doing just that. So back to this slide, and just to give you a sense of what it entails. Biodiversity accounting is a process of measuring and tracking the variety of plants and animals and ecosystems that are specific around our areas. And that entails, identifying species and ecosystems, measuring what conditions have changed, what stays the same, recording the data, making sure that we've got it recorded in a structured way, and using the information to make decisions that support conservation and sustainable development. So if you think about it, it's like financial accounting, but instead of tracking money, we're tracking nature. And through our biodiversity action plans, we aim to align our mine closure as well as our carbon sequestration plans. And that enables a net positive biodiversity. And what we mean by net positive is that we want to have positive impacts on biodiversity rather than only minimizing our negative impacts. So here's a bit more technical detail. So this is an example of one of our tailings facilities called 𝘵𝑗𝑚𝑎𝑟𝑎nd, and there's an expansion of this facility. So this is an example of protecting nature while we mine. So the 𝘵𝑗𝑚𝑎𝑟𝑎nd TSF is expanding, and the numbers here that you've got is around 340 hectares, and it reaches a height of 100 meters, and it operates until the year 2040. So why biodiversity matters in this area is because this area is near the Vaal River, and it's a vital source of water. So expansion in this area means there's a risk of seepage into groundwater, soil salinization, dust issues affecting wetlands and ecosystems. And when you look at what we're doing in that area, so there's protection of water where we've got boreholes and water treatment plants that's planned. There's also a wetland that's created and developed in that area where we have stormwater dams that disperse water over some of those areas to create artificial wetlands. And that protects the riverbanks as well as it supports the nature around that area. And there's a planned 50-hectare eucalyptus trees that will be planted in that area. And that essentially will reduce the amount of water as well as the dust. So the outcomes in that area will be mining expansion projects that we respect biodiversity, we protect the Vaal River, and supporting healthy ecosystems. I want to take you through another example of biodiversity and one of the initiatives that is a positive. This project is essentially healing nature with trees. And it's called the 𝗧𝗏𝗯𝗪 woodlands. This is a historical project and historical tailing spillages in that area. And that caused acid mine drainage around that area. So there was a 𝗧𝗏𝗪 wetland that was impacted specifically in the 𝗨𝗿𝗶𝗀𝗪 days. This is a long-term project. So the project was started in the 1990s, and it's essentially using trees and wetland plants to naturally clean up acid mine drainage and metals in that area. So we refer to that as phytoremediation. This is a low maintenance, it's nature-based approach. It improves water quality in that area and also for downstream users, so that, you know, it does restore that ecosystem at some point. So this project is a good example of how nature can help fix some of the mining legacies that we have. And instead of relying on expensive technology, so we use trees and wetland plants to clean up pollution. It's also a good example of partnerships. So it's a partnership between mining and universities, and essentially resulting in cleaner water, restored wetlands, and a sustainable model for future rehabilitation. This is also a smaller example, but I think also worth mentioning. We've got the construction of diversion channels as well as hydroseeding, and that prevents erosion on side slopes where we've got bare soil. And at the bottom, you'll see a picture of our 𝗪𝗏𝗪𝗀𝗪𝗏 tailings facility. And this has been revegetated on the side slopes. There's an area of 12.5 hectares that's been rehabbed. And that's quite significant in terms of reducing dust impacts specifically. I think, as I mentioned earlier, the example of women standing in the front lines of rehabilitation and transforming landscapes. So including women in biodiversity-related roles, especially such as environmental monitoring and rehabilitation projects, it empowers women and also, you know, works towards conservation. So some of the companies highlighted in this slide, we have Digby Wells that's involved in closure costing. And we've got 100% women-owned businesses, which is 𝗵𝗵𝗂𝗪 as well as tailor-made trading. They work on rehab projects and other projects for us. And I think you're going to get a better idea of tailor-made trading in the next slides. We dive in a little bit deeper. So getting to know 𝗕𝗄𝗵𝗂𝗪, and these are a few posters to showcase the tailor-made trading and gives a list of the projects as well as the roadmap that the company has undertaken. This is 𝗕𝗄𝗵𝗂𝗪 awarded the Standard Bank Top Women, Top Gender Empowered Company in 2024. But instead of me talking about her achievements, I'll let her speak for herself. So we've got a short video that we'd like you to watch.
Hi, my name is 𝗕𝗄𝗵𝗂𝗪. I'm the owner, founder, and single managing director of tailor-made trading. I've been doing this for the past 7 years. I own a construction business in the mining space. When it comes to employment, 90% of my people come from the local community. The services we offer Harmony: land rehabilitation and demolition, and remove any mining footprint. We also have supply contracts in place with Harmony. I supply bulk cement for underground after blasting. And I've got a 5-year contract of them as well, where I operate and lease a canteen out. And in terms of local development, we do get involved with programs also in the community. We do a lot of sponsorships for the local schools, old age homes, children's homes, churches, anything that's happening in the community we get involved in. I'm currently the only Black female company offering rehabilitation services for harmony in the Free State area, the first and hopefully not the last, meaning I'm a door opener for other ladies hopefully to enter in the space. I'm an award-winning entrepreneur in a serial one at that. 𝘕𝗵𝘂𝗧 is going into other areas in the mining space because of Harmony, and I wouldn't have achieved any of that if Harmony had not given me the platform to even do that. So I'd like to say thank you, and I hope they keep opening more doors for me to grow.
Thank you. I'm going to hand over to Yureshni to close.
Thank you so much, Women in Mining friends. 7th day on the job, Nishi. Thank you so much, Nishi. Certainly a high level of confidence. Nishi also comes from boardroom, boots, and a deep understanding of biodiversity and environment. Thank you so much, Nishi, for sharing those insights with us. And what we want to leave you with is a high level of confidence. And I know my colleagues are on the call as well. Within the mining industry, we are doing everything that we need to do to make sure that sustainability is receiving the necessary attention. We want you to reflect as a biodiversity steward. Most of you, you've done your MBAs. Most of you have been in boardrooms. Most of you have worn boots. How many of us are taking it home and into the community? How many of us are doing the courageous thing for our future? We know the legacy, we know the tale around when is the best time to plant a tree. 10 years ago, when is the next best time to plant the tree? Now. So we really want to appeal to you. We want to do a call to action to say, let's all of us together move towards nature positive in all the areas that we can impact. And let's be true biodiversity stewards. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ladies. That was a mouthful. You are doing a great job. And Nishi, I didn't know that you've been on the job for 7 days. I mean, that is amazing. You're doing very well. And I think one of the things that we spoke about at the 𝗵𝗂𝗧 Symposium, was that push, that support, that sponsorship, which is what you're doing, Dr. Yureshni, to say, you're throwing her, she has to run, she has to do it, and she's doing a good job. With that being said, we'll be taking questions from the audience. And wow, there's already a first question, and it says, do you have an assurance framework to assess all your mining sites against your strategy and plans that you've discussed?
Yes, great. Thank you so much. So the assurance framework is really around internal assurance and external assurance. We select metrics based on our material areas. And what is very important, especially if you want to link it to strategy, you got to look at those metrics where you are basing decisions that result in cost, capital allocation, and resources. So if you look at it across your ES and G, you will find that you've got more than 100 metrics. But you've got to be very selective of those metrics that you are taking to board and you're asking for funding. You're taking it to the projects committee and you're asking them to put it through their filter and you want them to prefer your project for implementation. And to do that, you need external assurance. So we have developed a very robust criteria in terms of how we select our metrics for external assurance. This year, we've got a company called RSM. We've given them metrics across the E, the S, and the G. They go out on the ground and they verify those metrics, and we take them through to the board social and ethics audit and risk committee so that they can have that next level of assurance that is not just Harmony, our sustainability team that are demonstrating our performance, it's also externally assured. All of this in terms of the GRI, AA sustainability assurance standards, all of those are very well regulated.
Thank you so much for that. Maybe to follow up on that, it would be to say you mentioned seeking, going to the board, seeking funding. But at the end of the day, these are companies and they need to make profits. So how do we then balance the pressure that comes with short-term profits that are required, as well as the long-term vision that you have as an organization for being nature positive? How do we balance the two?
Brilliant question. And it's something that sustainability professionals have been grappling with for many years. We're very blessed in that those big capital allocation items for sustainability drives profitability. They have a business case. I've shared with you in terms of the renewable energy projects, the installation of renewable energy on site is coming at a lower price of electricity versus your municipal bill. Cumulatively, you've seen that it's like 425 million rands. Same with the water treatment plant. I mean, if you have failing infrastructure, the opportunity cost of not installing your water treatment plant is enormous. I mean, 1 day of a gold plant that is not in operation runs into millions. So the opportunity cost is there for motivation. More importantly, is when you install that water treatment plant and you do the business case for it, the water that comes out of that water treatment plant is cheaper than your municipal water. And so it goes. What is the business case for having women in mining? And most of us, having been in the women in mining circles, knows in terms of the profitability, in terms of the quality of the decisions, etc., etc. We've got to make sure that we quantify that and we present it as part of the business case for why we want our projects. So no longer are sustainability professionals saying it's the nice thing to do, it's the right thing to do. It's about protecting value and then driving operational excellence.
From what you're saying, what I'm gathering is that there is definitely a win. It's just how you present your strategy to the relevant stakeholders. And with that being said, maybe to bring Nishi back into the conversation would be to say, now we have the funds. So we went to the board, we got the funds. How are we then looking at innovation to say what innovative strategies do you see coming into play in the next short-term, medium-term, or long-term when it comes to biodiversity, especially when you were talking about rehabilitation and you're talking in terms of the intensive usage of water as well, to say what innovation is coming into play, what should we look out for? Yeah, maybe if you can help us with that.
Sure. Thanks, Ntsako. So coincidentally, I presented this morning to SIAM on governance and innovation for critical minerals. And it was such an interesting topic. So we talked about, and it was a panel session, and we discussed how governance and innovation tie together with critical minerals and just how to balance that. But essentially, from a mining perspective, so if we've got, for example, let's say your GISTM compliance levels, ICMM, and all the international governance standards that come through. So for biodiversity would be typically a TNFD type standard. So it's about those standards and us getting to a performance level and KPIs aligned with that type of standard. And those KPIs and those standards, then they almost prompt you to find innovative solutions to problems. So the way we always did things, which is, essentially how we are trained as environmentalists to look at biodiversity. But now it's about thinking out of the box, and we're moving from this very green biodiversity view of plants and trees to nature positive, where you start to really encapsulate climate change, decarbonization, and all the whole suite of environmental and sustainability in one. And there's also a social and community component. So yeah, it was that I think is where we are moving in terms of the innovation space. There's also an aspect of AI, digital permitting, as well as looking at how do we get to a point of using technologies much better. We've got some good examples of, for example, water stewardship. We looked at dry stacking of tailings facilities to prevent pollution rather than trying to mitigate pollution. So there's quite a bit of work in that space. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, you have. There's a comment here that I like. I don't know. I'd like to get your view on it. It says from 𝗕𝗵𝗂𝗪𝗓, who says, I still believe that funding of HDSA companies is still a great barrier. Yes, we have won the boots, sat in the boardrooms, and have our MBAs, but without a real appetite for women to be funded in order to take it home. This will just remain hopeful, inspiring, with no tangible outcomes. What's your take on that? And maybe before you answer that, I'd like to bring 𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗔𝗔 into the conversation. I saw she joined. So while you answer that, 𝘪𝗔𝗔, maybe 𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗔𝗔 will still be thinking of a response to this statement as well.
Sure. Women in mining, women in business, women in the boardroom. We got to make sure we see ourselves as equal and we equip ourselves to be competitive. And it's sad. It is very sad, but that's how it is. When we look at the success stories, Nishi shared one with you. All our success stories where we had women entrepreneurs that walked through the door, that put their hand up for SMME opportunities. They said to us, I have a small business, I have a few trucks, I'm willing to do what needs to be done to win your confidence. They worked with the supply chain. It's not about funding, it's about bringing their people, their confidence, bringing their resources in. Worked with SMME team, grew larger projects, longer term projects. I mean, some of them have been with us from 2017. They've grown their business from 1-2 people till about 40 people. They had 3 trucks. We have success stories where one of our mines, we needed to have a whole fleet of taxis, pivoted. They no longer are saying, listen, sorry, we only do large trucks. Pivoted, worked with our trusted supply chain team as part of the SMME programs. Yes, there was some funding involved, but the funding obviously is not enough for the business to thrive. Again, they appointed local people, grew confidence in the local people, probably about 50-60 taxis, took on the projects and they ran with it. Similarly with our women in mining that started off with renewable energy projects, There's a great example where they did lighting installations. That's all they could do. It was a South African, it was a strong female partner within that South African 𝗵𝗶𝗏𝗏 #1. And they came in and they said, listen, give us an opportunity. There's not a lot of experience when it comes to solar panel installation. Give us the opportunity. Worked with the supply chain team, successful. Another really good story, 𝗪𝗍𝗂, where I went on site. We appointed the developer to install the renewable energy on site. As part of it, we said to them, you need to have set aside for local women to work as part of the project. What can local women do on a large capital-intensive solar project? One of the areas was what they call assembly. So all the components are there. You can think of us women when we go to parties, when we go to festive preparation, we all are working on tables. Whether we are packing stuff together, decorating, etc. That's exactly how it looked. We had 50 women and all they were doing was they're unpacking and assembling components. And I said to our projects team, how did you get it right? How did you get women to come through and work on our 𝗪𝗍𝗂, which is near the Moab side? And they said to me, listen, we asked men to do it. They didn't want to do it. So again, it's about having the courage. It is coming through, backing yourself, credibility. Yes, I mean, anybody, whether you talk to male, whether you talk to female, entrepreneurship, being a woman in business, being a male in business is tough, but it's about toughing it out. And there are really, truly great case examples of women that have come through and have succeeded at Harmony as entrepreneurs.
Wow, that's a mouthful, and quite impressive, because from what I'm getting, there's to say, raise your hand and say, I'm here. I'm here to do the work. I'm here to put in the effort. I'm here to do what needs to be done. I don't know if Mokgaliadi is still here.
I am. Thank you, Nsako, and thank you so much, everybody, for such, and Dr. Govender, for such an insightful and educational presentation. Obviously, this is not my area of expertise, and I'm really excited about, the experiences you've shared and how women are making, change in the space. What I wanted to add to that comment around capital and funding of women-owned businesses, I think you've covered it very, very well, as well as, with real life experiences. But I think it's a mindset shift as well, from just looking at, women-owned businesses in isolation to just businesses delivering value, and ensuring that we remain, participants and contributors in all spheres, from your R&D in education to leadership, and even in these boardrooms where, decisions are made, and also funding is decided on businesses that create value. And I think there's actually a space, an opportunity for us to learn from the examples you've used, Dr. Govender. And I actually don't have really any new, I think, input, besides just agreeing that, of course, funding remains one of the barriers to growing women-owned businesses, but there's really opportunity for us to really participate throughout the value chain, and ensure that we don't lose hope. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mokgaliadi. Do not lose hope. There's a question from Tandega. It says, sustainability and strategy is successful when measured beyond boardroom matrices, but also the value the community sees over long term. How is mining, in this instance, Harmony, co-creating with the community and institutions on what future value creation means, helping the industry to be more proactive? For example, the value creation shifting from being a job creator to being an enabler of economic hubs beyond mine closures.
Great. I mean, really, that's a brilliant question in terms of how do we add value to our communities, and how do we make sure that we are setting up the mines for the long term. And one of the things that we talk about within Harmony is a partner of choice, where we believe that we need to understand what are the needs of our communities, and we need to deliver to those needs of the communities in the now, and then also supporting them in terms of the skills of the future. So, I mean, if you look at broader mining examples as well, if we look at, for example, where in my previous life where I was with the De Beers, and we had a project which is called 𝗕𝗫𝗂. That is really a brilliant example of where there were artisanal miners. And when you think artisanal miners, you think poor sustainability practices, poor safety practices, no PPE, etc., and that there are diamonds there that are of no value. What De Beers did is they provided a route to market. So they engaged with artisanal miners through a very structured process. They provided them with a route to market by offering them a fair price for those diamonds. Those miners are now able to practice sustainably. They were able to afford the PPE. They were providing data in terms of safety stats, in terms of impacts to water, etc. Those artisanal miners as well became localized. So even there was conversations around women in mining. There were conversations around how do we include localization as part of artisanal mining. They then closed the loop where every single diamond has got a coding on it. So you would be able to trace it from source all the way to finger. And that's really a great example of how mining can add value across the value chain, starting with artisanal miners. If we look at within our communities, we certainly are looking at, for starters, livelihoods. We don't like to talk about it, but people need food on their table and they need to have a level of livelihood. So we spent a lot of money investing in food gardens. We spent a lot of money demonstrating to people how they can set up food tunnels. We provided them with whatever they needed for those food tunnels at our cost, and we said to them, pay it forward. Your responsibility is to now take 5 more of these and go and train 5 people within your communities. So before you knew it, we had thriving food tunnels. We had people that were preparing their own gardens, selling off fresh vegetables, etc. So there are a lot of these case study examples locally, internationally, where mining companies are doing that much more to bring the communities in. And as we gear ourselves up for the future, Nishi spoke about innovation, technology. As we start to think about end of mine life, reimagine it so that those, we spoke about renewable energy plants. Those renewable energy plants almost gets handed over to a community operation that can continue to maintain those renewable energy plants, sell them off, and receive a revenue. Communities can understand what does monitoring mean. They can learn how to do the water monitoring where passive samplers are not available, where remote online monitors need maintenance, etc. Get the communities around to be able to do it. And that's really the thinking around the skills of the future. So a lot of thinking is going into that reimagining mining as well.
Wow. Okay, that's a mouthful, but I love the examples that you've given in terms of the fact that we're not just doing something for the now. It's long term. It's looking after the generations that are to come. So we're not just doing it for us to say, okay, now I'm in mining. As long as I get my job done, as long as I get my paycheck, it's done. But we're looking at the generations that are to come and empowering them with skills as well, transferable skills for that matter, which is something that I think is very commendable. Maybe I'm going to couple these 2 questions together as one of our last questions to say, Will Harmony, within its business rehabilitation plans for its operation, want to internalize green power in its longer future to rehabilitate current mining land and acquire new adjacent mining land, or rather stay with external partnership? That's the first part. And the second part of the question would be to say, also looking at rehabilitation of land, to say, how effective have artificial wetland system proven to treat acid mine drainage? Because what they're saying is that with the recent assessment at PFS level, it is not recommended due to the quality challenges at the catchments. So yeah, those are the two questions. Maybe Dr. Govender take the first part, and then Nishi will take the second part in terms of acid mine drainage.
Sure, sure. I mean, when we think biodiversity and how biodiversity can play a key role when it comes to the carbon roadmap, that's really looking at the residual carbon that will be there. And that's when we start to talk about offsets. So what does offset mean? It's exactly what you're saying. We will not have sufficient area or property within Harmony to be able to have sufficient sinks. And that's where we look externally to partnerships. So those partnerships will be either some form of arrangements where we will buy carbon credits for forest, where we will buy carbon credits for recognized offsets. So certainly we won't be able to do everything ourselves. We will partners to support us to address that residual carbon post this ambitious renewable energy plant. And you know, the carbon offset, the methodology that comes through with those offset calculations for trees, etc., is advancing. What we have also recognized internally within Harmony, yes, we will be planting whatever trees we need to. We will be restoring ecosystems. We will be doing it because we want to move towards nature positive from a biodiversity perspective. The calculations, the level of rigor and the level of onerousness that will come from counting trees is not something we want to take on. So I think there's definitely, there's definitely room for partnership in that area. Nishi, please go ahead and add. I think especially around the wetlands, I think in terms of the wetlands as well, it's always restorative. Fortunately, within Harmony, we don't have an acid mine drainage problem per se. But Nishi, I know you've got a lot of experience on wetlands.
Yeah, I think just to the question about how effective the wetland treatment is for acid mine drainage. So I think let me put it to you this way. So there's two ways, right? So if you've got an acid mine or acid mine drainage issue and you want to have a full-on water treatment plant, then that's a more effective way and faster way to do that. So the water gets treated and then you're able to discharge it at a pH that's acceptable. Now with the wetland type solution, it's very long term. So it's not like a water treatment plant. And there's a few variables there because there's dependencies on, for example, hydrology. So how you design that wetland, how effective, it will depend on how effective it is. So you've got to get proper design on hydrology. There's another aspect of looking at the types of vegetation and the species that needs to be in that area that will thrive on acidic water. There's also aspects of, let's say, water quality monitoring that you've got to do over the longer term. So I think it's not a quick fix, but it is, and it can be used as a solution, provided that you design it properly and you've got the right specialists in there. There's some work that the University of the Free State is doing a feasibility study, and I've just got some experience with some other pilot projects that were underway. So if you get the right specialists in, you'll be able to design something that will be I'd say, acceptable to that level of being effective, but over the longer term. Thanks.
No, thank you so much. I think you've spoken a mouthful. There's one comment that I'd like to close off with, but before we go there, maybe just one last question for the both of you to say, if you were to leave the audience today with just one thing in terms of biodiversity and stewardship, what would it be?
Be a biodiversity steward. Start planting your trees, encourage others to plant trees, restore. Thank you.
Yeah, I think from my side, I would echo the same. And I think that the value of doing something small should be highly appreciated, where even if you plant a tree or herbs in your garden, there's value in that. So the solutions and your action does not have to be so big. And yeah, so I think just the little things matter. Thanks.
No, thank you so much. I think one of the things that we spoke about during the briefing session with Dr. Govender was that it starts as small as you closing your tap at home. It starts from what you do in your own household and teaching the people you live with. So yeah, that's being a steward. And thank you so much for that. Maybe to close off and on a high note, there's a young lady, a 24-year-old Dineo, who is saying that she is a film graduate. She has a degree in film, and she would like to move to mining. So I think we've in the work that we do, in the conversations that we inspire, we inspire the younger generation to come on board. And she is asking a question, maybe this to you, Mpho. I think I wanted to be like, okay, this question is not relevant to sustainability, but I'm thinking it's a young person who's raising a hand to say, I'm here to join the mining space. And maybe to you, 𝗏𝗏. 𝗏𝗏 is our deputy chair for WEMSA. She is asking to say, given her background, which is in film, would you recommend pursuing formal studies, or should she focus more on mentorship and gaining industry exposure first? Yeah, so maybe if you can answer that before we close.
Thank you so much, Nsako, and great to hear from you. I just want to get your name, Dineo, and thanks for joining this event. So I think as a young person, the best thing you would want to do for yourself is to gain some industry experience and really reaffirm that that's the industry of your choice, and you want to build a career in it, and use that experience to guide whether you want to continue, your further studies in the same field, or you'd want to pivot into other areas that support, the career plan that you'd have, career goals that you have for yourself. So for me, the advice I usually give my mentees is hone your skill in something first before you then become, a master in a field that you don't know much about, because the truth is your academic experience needs to be supported by some, real life experience. And yeah, I wish you a successful career in your field, and maybe we can even interface in mining, who knows? So, but great question, and thank you for joining. Thanks, Nsako.
Thank you so much. And I know there are still so many questions. Please feel free to send them through to our email, info@wemsa.org.za. You can also find it on our website, Women in Mining South Africa. Send through the questions. We'll send them through to our speakers for the day. And also, if I saw that there were a few requests for the presentation, send through those emails and we'll be able to respond where we can. With that being said, thank you so much, Dr. Govender, and thank you so much, Nishi, for sharing your insights and your experiences with us today. I think we've learned a lot. This was more I think it was more than a presentation. It was more of a conversation. It was more of a learning curve. And it was more of call to action. Do something while you can. And also, whatever it takes, as a professional, as community members, as individuals, let's become steward for both people and the planet. Let's come together and work together. With that being said, one more round of applause for our speakers. And thank you so, so much, and have a wonderful evening. From myself and 𝗧𝗲𝗄, good night.
Thank you. Bye all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.